What is up, everyone? This is Nova Vaughn, and let me tell you what's going on. Well, Chapter 23 of The Mandalorian was just released, and I gotta say, big time improvement from last week's awful episode. And this week we finally got to have Moff Gideon in this episode.
Finally.
And it's going to set up for what I hope to be a good finale in next week's episode. So let's get into it. Title of this chapter is The Spies, and it creates a lot of speculation as to who could be these spies. We already know one person is going to be a spy, and we'll get right into that. Of course, the spy I'm talking about is none other than Alaya. She is on Coruscant. She comes upon an Imperial probe droid, and she gets a message from Moff Gideon, and she conveys him some information as to what is happening. And there we have Moff Gideon, live in person.
It's about time.
He conveys to her what she needs to do next. Moff Gideon is walking down this hallway, guarded by some stormtroopers, and their armors are pretty neat, if I'm being honest. Nice, made out of some Beskar. And if you look how he's walking down the hallway with the red fixtures, it's kind of a callback to the Phantom Menace when Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan were facing Darth Maul, and they were caught in those beams, preventing them from chasing after Maul. We see Moff Gideon goes into this meeting with some different Imperial agents known as the Warlords. And there's a couple of noteworthy individuals here. We've got Commandant Hux, the father of General Hux in the sequel trilogy, and Captain Pelion, who is Admiral Thrawn's right-hand man, based on the novels of the Thrawn trilogy written by Timothy Zahn. So they give a big shout out to Grand Admiral Thrawn, and even Moff Gideon is mocking Pelion as to where Thrawn is, and perhaps they need some new leadership. Then we see Moff Gideon talking about some things that he needs, and he's explaining to the warlords what is going to be happening on Mandalore, how Bo-Katan is going to lead all the Mandalorians back on Mandalore and get them all united, and he is asking for help. Now we go back on Navarro, where Greef Karga is telling his droid that those are not an Imperial ships, but rather they are Mandalorians based on their markings of the bottom of their ships, even though the droid thought that they were Imperial starships. And as you can see, the mythosaur symbol is right on the bottom of the ship, thus indicating that this fleet is indeed Mandalorians, and they are arriving on Navarro. So we see a kind of a standoff here between Bo-Katan's Night Owls and the converts led by the Armor and Paz Vizsla, and you can kind of tell right here that there's some animosity between these two factions. As you can see, the factions are really against each other. You got the converts that don't remove their helmets, and yet you have the Night Owls that do. However, the Armor steps in and welcomes Bo-Katan and her clansmen. She tells them that they can camp on their land and then she invites them to a feast. Greef Karga shows up, and he welcomes Din back. He takes Din back to his headquarters, and here we see IG-11, who Greef Karga says it's now IG-12, and he's controlled by Babu Frick. So he's telling Din that this IG unit is fixed and it's ready for Grogu, and that this IG unit has to be manually controlled. As you can see, Babu Frick controlling IG-12. They put Grogu in the IG unit, and he's maneuvering himself throughout the office of Greef Karga, and he speaks his first word. It says he's pushing these buttons that are saying yes, no, no, yes, things like that. So this is their loophole of getting around Grogu talking this season. They're walking back to the Mandalorian camp, and as they're walking through the market street, Grogu comes upon the stand, and he starts eating the food and drinking its water, and so because of that, Din has to pay for what Grogu ate and drank. Bo-Katan, during the evening, is talking to all the Mandalorians, both factions, about her wanting to go to Mandalore to restore the city, and so she's looking for volunteers to take a crew down and look for the forge. Unfortunately, nobody's saying anything until Din Djarin steps up and says that he will go, and then Casca says she will go. Axe says he will go. Paz Vizsla says he'll go. Basically, the rest of the factions of both Mandalorians are agreeing to go with Bo-Katan to Mandalore. And even the armor is volunteers to go as well. So they arrive at Mandalore, the entire fleet. Bo-Katan and the crew are the ones that are getting ready to go down to the surface, while the rest of the fleet stays in the air, and they're looking upon the surface, and they're just devastated at how awful Mandalore has become. In fact, it was Axe himself that said that he was there when the Great Purge happened during the Empire's reign. So they get on the surface, and Bo and the rest of the crew, they begin their search for the forge. As they are traveling to search for the forge, they are approached by this ship that's on ground, and they are other Mandalorians. And these individuals used to serve Bo-Katan, and so they are welcoming her back. They're saying that they are still indebted to her, that their service to her is still available. In fact, they are discussing what happened during the Night of the Thousand Tears when the Empire laid their siege on Mandalore, and how helpless they felt. However, it was Bo-Katan herself that told what happened. She said that she was offered surrender to Moff Gideon. She agreed to surrender to Moff Gideon, and that's how she lost her Darksaber. That's how Moff Gideon got the Darksaber from Bo-Katan. Moff Gideon had said that they would spare them. However, Moff Gideon betrayed that promise, and they still laid the siege upon Mandalore. And so this captain is asking the armor, if they are the children of the Watch. And the armor is explaining to them that they were hidden on Concordia, and she told them that Death Watch is no longer in existence. So Bo-Katan here is trying to help them to realize that how great of a planet Mandalore was, how they were strong, no one could defeat them, it was because of their different factions and their different divisions that caused them to be weakened. She even said that their battles against each other is what was our weakness. And so she is trying to get the Mandalorian factions reunited so they can gain their strength and be a formidable planet. Din here is offering his service to Bo-Katan, and he says that I will be in your service until this mission is accomplished. Then we see Paz Vizsla and Axe Woves playing a little friendly game of chess, and as you can see, it's very friendly. They get into a little scuffle, and it was Grogu that steps in and separates the two, and he's pushing that button on the IG unit saying, no. As they're making their way to the forge, they are encountered by this beast. Now, I have to admit that I thought that this was the mythosaur, but it is not. It's not the mythosaur. This beast was as big as it was. It pales in comparison to the size of the mythosaur. So this was just some other beast that was attacking the ship. The Mandalorians escape to a cave. The cave happens to lead the Mandalorians to their great forge. And as they're surveying what was once a great place, those same Imperial troopers that we saw at the beginning with Moff Gideon come in, and they start, and then there's an all-out attack between troopers and the Mandalorians in the cave. The Mandalorians think that they are giving the troopers the chase because they're running away and they're chasing after them. However, they are leading them right to the Imperial headquarters on Mandalore, because as you can see, the TIE bombers are there. This is Moff Gideon's station. So there's a battle that's going out, and one of the trapdoors comes down. Din is fighting off the Imperial troopers with a couple of other Mandalorians, but the troopers get Din Djarin captured, and they take him down. And they've got him tied down because Din was really fighting these guys off massively. Then we see the big evil himself, Mr. Moff Gideon. He shows up. He's in this new armor. He said that this is made out of Beskar from the battle droids that we saw the finale of season 2, and he himself has this armor made out of Beskar. Gideon instructs Bo to give him back what's rightfully his, and that of course is the Darksaber. However, Bo-Katan refuses to give it, so she takes the Darksaber, cuts through the blast doors, kind of reminiscent of what Qui-Gon did when he was going after the Viceroy in The Phantom Menace. She's cutting through the blast doors so that her and her fellow Mandalorians can escape. Paz Vizsla sacrifices himself. Bo is trying to get Paz to join him, but he is telling Bo and everybody else to leave while he fights off the rest of the Imperial troopers. And he's doing a very good job. He is going very hard on these. His weapon is so hot that it starts to burn up. However, he continues to fight off one by one. However, the Praetorian Guards show up, Moff Gideon's protectors, and sadly, that's the last we see of Paz Vizsla. And that is where the episode ends. So that's what was this week's recap. Now, I gotta say, it started off a little bit slow with Elia meeting up with Moff Gideon there on Coruscant. We finally see Moff Gideon. I mean, come on. Second episode from the last, and you bring him in? They definitely should have brought him in much, much sooner. We saw the friction between Bo-Katan's crew and the Armor's crew, but they worked things out. They fought together. Paz Vizsla sacrificed himself so that the rest of the Mandalorians could escape. The battle between the Mandalorians and the Moff Gideon's troopers was great. There was just a lot of great action in this, and this is what we've been needing this whole season. This we did not need to have any of these side hustles. I mean, why couldn't they have more episodes like this throughout the season? Why did they have to wait so late? I just don't get it. This episode was definitely up there. This was definitely one of the best so far. Now, I cannot wait to see how they finish next week's finale. I really hope that they really step it up big time because a lot of things happen here. You got Din is captured, kind of reminiscent of last season when Grogu was captured by the Dark Troopers, led by Moff Gideon. It's kind of a reversal effect this season, if you ask me. It just makes me wonder if next week's episode title is going to be called The Rescue Part 2. That wouldn't surprise me.
I don't think so.
But it was good seeing the nice references, some of the characters that were in the Thrawn trilogy, with Captain Pelion and the Grand Admiral Thrawn. It makes me wonder, will Thrawn be in this finale? I honestly don't think he will. I think they're saving Thrawn for the Ahsoka series. Is there going to be a battle between Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon? How's that going to end? What's going to happen to Mandalore? Are there going to be more factions? Are we going to see any assistance, any help for the Mandalorians against Moff Gideon and the Imperial troopers? There's just so many things that are going to happen in one show. How long is this show going to be? Who knows? This show was about 50 minutes. There's just so many things. They really need to finish this on a strong level. In my opinion, this was the season premiere, and that is sad because this season has just been a major letdown. Now, this episode was definitely great. It did have its flaws, but I'm still giving it a good score. A lot of people are giving this episode like a 9 or a 10. I'm not going that high. However, I am definitely giving this rating almost a 9. Almost. Not quite. It's still, after everything that's happened this season, I mean, it can't just go from god-awful to amazing. And plus, you never know what's going to happen in the season finale. So, with all those factored in, I'm giving this an 8.75 for this episode. So what did you like about this episode? What did you not like about this episode? What rating would you give this episode? That's the recap of this week's episode of The Mandalorian. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please give this video a like, and you can subscribe to my channel as well. You can also follow me on Instagram and join me on my Discord server. This is Nova Vaughn reminding you that it is never too late for a new beginning in your life. So be positive, be cool, and you will be all right.